All right, so I'm gonna go ahead with today's comic breakdown study. I started a little bit early. There was some setting up, so but I think it's for the best. It skips to the good part. So it's Genesis 4 to 5. It's we have brothers blood. Why did I blood cried? I heard blood brother. Okay, blood cry. Okay, so it's about the story of Cain and Abel. I'm just gonna walk through what it did, right? So I laid out, just sort of identify the arc in the beginning. I wrote a little bit of screenplay right here. Screenplay, but if I were to write, what I would do. So, and I actually don't think, after writing this out, I don't think this really need to be part of my process, right? I think it's like an outline where you can sort of identify the arc in a more structured way. But I don't know if it really adds any value to this breakdown because everything I'm processing more visually. I think if anything, I would start from sort of the emotions from the comic and translate that into a screenplay afterwards. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm actually starting to develop some pretty cool kind of identification method for studying this. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly go through it one more time, but this is a story everybody should be familiar with. I do want to do it again though, for my own sake. So again, this story uses a lot of captions, right? And I think the captions are great for sort of a timing purposes, right? Actually, I'm gonna write that down. Summary. So we have captions are great for timing and obviously narration, right? But I do think that the timing part of it is what's interesting. So outside the Garden of Eden, the land is barren, hot and dry, weary, alone, and frightened. Adam and Eve search until they find a place to make a home. Remember how beautiful Eden was? If only it is our own fault for disobeying God. But I'll teach our children to obey and love God. If I can help it, they won't repeat our mistakes. So Adam teaches their sons, Cain and Abel, about God. God made earth and everything we have. God even gave me my little lamb. Sheeps are dumb. So I think over here, the caption is still used. This actually might be the inciting event, right? So the inciting event actually lasts like through these 2 pages because the conversation carries over here. How can I thank him? When you're older, Abel, you can give God the best of your flock. He told us we should make sacrifices to show our thankfulness. As a boy grow to manhood, Abel plans for the day when he can give his thanks offerings to God, but Cain thinks only of his crops. I must say though, like between this one and this one, the gap in timing isn't that apparent, right? Like I can't really figure out. Like this almost seems like it's together, but it's fine. So the last panel is God is pleased with Abel's gift, but Cain's grudging spirit displeased God. I did notice that earlier that his head pops up here, and I was wondering why. And I think it adds importance to this panel, right? Because this layer is literally above the rest of the layers. I think I would do it, like, it's really hard to follow actually. So so this is establishing shot pretty much. And then you have a conversation that takes place. So this and this is sort of together, right? And then over here is really looks like it's together. So we got establishing or whatever is going on in the background. I think there's a word for it in Save the Cat. And then we have this sort of talk that happens here. And over here, we have a decision being made. So as a plot point to basically kill Abel. As long as Abel is around, he'll always be the favorite. God told me I could choose to have power over my sin. I mean, obviously, this is the first time we're running into the bubbles, making, write that down too, bubbles in thoughts, right? Something that comics do well. And then over here, the action takes place. I wrote this down, so let me recap a little bit. If I could, let's just go through this. But I'd rather choose not to have a brother. Cain gives into his jealousy and kills his brother. Now I just need to pretend I don't know anything about Abel's death. But God calls out to him, Cain, where's your brother? I don't know. Am I supposed to keep track of my brother? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. From now on, the ground will yield no fruit for you, and you'll wander the earth until your death. Please, God, this punishment is more than I can take. And then it goes on. God's sentence is carried out. So basically, Cain actually gets punished, right, for the rest of his life. Cain flees to a land called Nod. Eventually, he will be married, start a family, and build the first city, which he will make name for his son Enoch. But in the meantime, Adam and Eve are broken over losing both of their sons. I actually think it's very interesting that he's being punished, but there's a redemption that took place in bearing fruit of the God, right? There's going to be more gifts. So, whether or not the redemption happens in a single generation, it is one. I think there's still forgiveness. Our house is so empty now, Adam. Will we always be alone like this? We brought this tragedy on ourselves. So did Cain. But God has been good to us. Let's ask him to help us now. In time, God gives Adam and Eve a third son. We'll call him Seth. And we'll teach him to obey God the way Abel did. Seth learns to obey God. Two of his descendants are Enoch, who walked with God, and Methuselah, who died at the age of 969, the oldest person ever to walk the earth. So we can also see that age is something that is a reward. So I think that's a cool thing. Age is a reward, and then we have Cain is redeemed, forgiven in other ways. So I find that pretty interesting. A long life is a reward. Obviously, you're not supposed to live to 969, but if I were to interpret this, it would be that it's a blessed family line, right? As generations passed, however, people turned away from God. So they worship the sun and the moon and the stars. They bow down before the idol. So we have single, one event, two events, three events. And obviously a bunch of background noise. They worship the sun and moon and stars, and they bow down before the idols. But there is one man, Noah, who looks on the sinfulness of the world with fear. How long will God allow this wickedness to continue? I actually really enjoy learning about this sort of comic book, like an action Marvel type comic books, which I know I don't read too much, but I assume that's similar. And like I said, I try to map this out to to a sort of an arc, right? So you have establishing, you have an inciting event, a conversation that takes place, right? Maybe it's a catalyst. And then an event, and then something happens because of the event. And decision was made, a plot point. And then I actually thought it was interesting that between this panel and the next, right? Like he made a decision to kill, and then there's this very short panel, but I think it encompasses a longer period of timeline. This turned in his head that somehow he got away with it, right? But we all know that is the story of a good and evil, and that eventually God will come out the top. So, he doesn't exactly get to enjoy this fun and games for too long, but it's pretty cool that, if I were to follow some beat sheet, it's kind of compressed in a way and actually not shown. And over here, God eventually wins. So if at first I thought that is Abel and God on the same team, and Abel is a representation of God, given that, they're both good in the story, right? And could be treated as a single unit. But then the actual emotions that transitions actually within Cain. So I couldn't exactly map it out in that way. And while I'm not familiar with this sort of arc that doesn't result in a happy ending, I think this is a final battle, right? So God calling out to Cain, and Cain basically losing, God winning, right? I think good prevails. Yeah, this is very interesting. And over here, the last two, I would say this sort of like an outro, like telling you what happened afterwards. Obviously, these you span a long period of time, but I wouldn't even consider this part of the story, right? The story kind of ends over here. It's like the closing scene, and then this happens, dot, 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 with the closing shots. So what I did was I drew everything out, and I decided to just use stick figures, but we can skip through this. Yeah. So I mainly identified a character, and the exercise in the beginning was what? Copy a character in dialogue. So I really just copied the character. Right, copy the character. So this is a character thing. But as I was doing that, I noticed something. I started writing the periods out, right? Like this happened in probably 10 minutes. This happened in between, it's probably 5 days. And I wrote these numbers out to see, well, in actuality, and these two are really long, in actuality, if I were to map it on a timeline, the comic actually has a special way of highlighting a segment in time. So I'm actually getting a shot of really a sequence of like these little what do you call it, like a movie reel where I'm just showing these sort of arc in between, but they're actually also missing plot points in between, right? That was using caption for. So yeah, I just found that interesting. And then of course everything that happened afterwards is afterwards. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's cool that they were able to manipulate the timing in such a way. I show this again. In such a way where these are basically just little fragments, and it almost seemingly is sequential, yet it has this crazy timing to it, right? A shot in a shot. Nothing is consistent between. Nothing's really consistent on the screen. I do think though, especially the first 2 pages, the kind of messiness of the timeline and the layout, or maybe just the layout and design in general, it cuts into my understanding. Like it's not very readable as much as, let's say, the subsequent pages, right? I think if I were to do my own version or improve upon it, I would probably, keep this panel right here and then the second one over here. And maybe have a better delineation of how timing is played out, right? And because in the end, these look like they belong together. The first one and the second panel right here. So these two, right? And it shouldn't be, actually, if you read the text closely. Okay, so what I did next was, the next exercise is to copy the emotions and identify the mood. I actually wanted to copy the emotions, identify the mood. The first one is copy from memory, and then the second one is copy character and dialogue outline. All right. Okay, let's do the dialogue outline. Okay, perfect. This is actually really cool. Okay, so we have caption, maybe a different caption, maybe a little darker actually. Let's go back right here. We have caption, yeah, caption. We have like there's some inconsistency over the style of the caption too. I think that's quite interesting, right? Because if I were to break down on a more sort of like a comic as a whole, I can see those inconsistencies and I look back upon it. It's kind of wild in the way I gotta read it and maybe as some fun or a flair of a comic book, but at the same time, I do think it could be more readable, right? That my eyes will have to look for things less, you know. I guess we'll figure out if that's really unnecessary. So, and then we have this, this, dot, dot, dot. This, dot, dot, dot. And then, dot, dot, dot. So it's actually pretty cool that in no time in this does, and this is God right here. Yeah, God definitely does a special treatment of dialogue. And I think I might just skip out on the last 2 pages, but there's a lot of caption right here, right? So that's why the timing is able to flow so fast. So again, like I think it's pretty interesting that a lot of captions will give to faster timing, right? Because you're just doing a lot of explanation. All right, let's see. So if I were to look at it again, it looks like Cain does not speak the whole time. He only speaks to God. So he's plotting the whole time. Very interesting. And then follow Abel. Abel is actually sort of a minor character, I would say. It's really between God and Cain. Abel is sort of just a crime that the victim, the crime that's committed. And can you do 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm. She completed the part.
Oh.
And he already doing the other levels.
You helped?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I guess, yeah. So what else did I notice? Okay, so I'm just gonna write down right here because actually probably I didn't share. So timing is interesting in this one, and then the character dialogue is consistent, right? So, and yeah, comic has a way to identify main and secondary character. It's actually really cool. It's like a diagram. Like you can just do whatever you want, and as long as it conveys it, right? It's sort of like a communication tool. And it is. And I think that's how I actually want to use the comic. It's going to be less about the art, that's for sure. And that language to communicate, it has to be a style that resonates. So, because I actually don't think a lot of people would pick up this stuff. If I were to do it in a style that my audience resonates with, right? Like The Simpsons or South Park or something like that, I think they would actually read it. Especially my age group, right? I don't think I'm trying to target the comic, like the superhero comic buying crowd especially. So, yeah, and I think the manga crowd might not be as prevalent as I think it is, given I don't know. Actually, Actually, I think I do have friends that read it. It's just not my age group. All right. Okay, so now we have all these characters laid out. I actually want to go back because today I don't have a timing to do this. So I copy the character, identify timing. So all right, this copy this is getting really messy. Here, identify timing. Arc basically. I think this is actually pretty cool. And then the next thing is the actual copy the character. And then along with it, so gestures and dialogue. And then identify mood. Okay. All right, I think there's a few ways to go about it. I actually have all the dialogues here laid out. And we can go into it, but I think for now, I'll come back to the dialogue, actual text later. But I think, I do think though that we can paint a mood, right? So, I mean, if I always put an establishing shot as green. Let's do green for just about everything. And then this is the beginning of plotting, right? So I'm gonna put a little bit. Orange. Yeah, brown. Okay, and then this one is and I will say though, over here, inside the event actually, I would say like, well, how should I do this? Blue maybe? Blue, yeah, blue, orange. And then we got red. Dude, I don't like, what is going on with this? Red. And then I think I don't like the climax is always, at least in these stories, this sort of heavy, like, it's got some like crazy lighting to it, right? What do you call that? It's like this dramatic lighting. That's a word. Dramatic lighting, yeah. So, and then over here too, right? So this is sort of an escape. And again, this is the final battle. So, you know, the good prevails, right? I mean, maybe I get a little green. This is getting messy. So the green kind of encloses the darkness, and the green will go against the black, which is this is conflict, and the green sort of just takes over. You know, this is actually interesting. So we're looking at this right now, and I like what I'm doing here. It's actually the green overpowers the bad. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we have the outro, and I always say that it's sort of a green again. Here again. Maybe a little bit darker because so I feel good. Okay, and then we have really a second story over here, but this sort of like cliffhanger and the main character introduced. But what's gonna happen next? Okay, let's run this through one more time. We have establishing shot and curiosity right here, and then curiosity. So right here, and then we have inciting event, and it's sort of conflict, climax, and then final battle, and then eventually the green takes over. It was one, and then there's the outro right here, and then the sort of cliffhanger. I like that. Okay. All right, last exercise. I'm gonna copy the background. I'm gonna do this with just the pencil, and then I'll put a timer on this. Start. So mountains right here, and then foreground, and then oh shoot, this is a okay. I will pretend like this is the same setting because it's not. So, but whatever. And then this is sky, and then this is land, sky. We have a thing right in front, and then close up, a fire. And then we have two panels right here. There's no background. There's nothing here, it's just a head. And then it's a cave of sorts. And then this is cave, land, and he pops out right here. And then over here, he have a head, nothing here, and then nothing here. So all these without a background are actually quite emotional takes. And then these are sort of actions, right? Actions always has a background, and then wondering has other elements to it. But the intense emotion ones have lines. Okay. That's actually pretty good. I like that exercise. And then the outro is or whatever, I think. Adam and Eve. And then the baby is actually sort of, I don't know how this is constructed, but I think it's good to do with the background too, right? And over here is the sin is a background. And I think this is actually great because then basically you have darkness taking over again. But then there'll be a glimmer of hope right here. So I do think it's pretty cool that every single story so far is about good and evil. The first one we did was Snake was obviously the evil one, but then this time around, Abel is the evil one. I mean, Cain. All right. Okay, so last practice we'll do. Okay, this one I'm gonna try to replicate from memory, right? And I'm just gonna do it with a single. It's gonna be hard. Okay, yeah, whatever. I'll just do it from memory. So if I could actually copy the panel, it would be better. Yeah, better. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. And then, of course, one outro. Ready, set. I'm gonna do 3 minutes for this one. Okay. So, house right here. And then, I actually wouldn't get too much into style, so I'm just gonna do Cain and Abel, and then this is sort of green. And over here is a big house over here, and talk about God. And then over here, we have more talking about should we how to thank God, then thank God, and then jealousy brews. And then we have here, and then I think is more sort of jealousy brewing. And then here's a real plotting with a stick. Actually, just looking right now. No stick, no Cain. And then we have the actual Cain, and then hit. And then we have over here, yeah, I'm developing my own language here. And then, okay, and then this is, he is a little bit happy. And then we have, what's the last one? Oh, him running away. And then we have him being punished, I think. And then over here is God speaking to him. Yeah. And then over here we have Adam and Eve. Sad. But we got a new baby. And then a bunch of sins. And then sad. Actually, he might be a little bit angry. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back around and sort of paint the mood a little bit. And I'm going to use that just with a regular type of paintbrush, I think. So, yeah. And sunny bands, and then over here we have complete darkness. It's the action, and then I think the darkness is lurking right here, so I can put darkness, and then running away, and then God is a little bit up here. And then God expands, and then he's a little darker, and then God's really expands. So the whole thing is about God expanding his power a little bit. It's a battle, right? And then, sort of outro, maybe a little bit dark, sad, and then, but there's hope. But there's even more darkness. Actually, this is complete dark. So this is actually the same thing, right? So lot of darkness in the world. Again, a preview of what's to come. Really dark. But then you have Noah. All right, so I think that's about it for today. Any last thought? So, well, first of all, I think this process has been developed a little bit better. I'm starting to realize that stylistically, this might not be the best time to study it, but the breakdown of the writing is actually pretty important. The storytelling is there, right? Like just through these little panels. And I think if I can develop my own language with the faces, right? Like little, I think I just really got to slow down. Would be a good idea. The first one is copy character, identify arc and timing. Great. The second one is copy the character and dialogue, and then mood study, right? And third one is setting. And I actually don't think I have any conclusion from this other than that I do think though that these darker ones, they do have like quality to it, right? Like darkness is lurking, and then yeah. But the deep emotions, when it's really intense, has no setting to it, so it's got a complete focus on the emotions. So it's really, the setting is chill, 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 chill right here. Nothing going on when there's setting. Intense. Whoa, what am I feeling? I think that's interesting. And lastly, I did it over again. So pretty much identify, again, good versus evil. Okay. Well, that was a decent session. I think it's good that I started earlier. Okay.